Hello and welcome to the video. This is a quick first look, I guess, at this thing here. This is something that I put on the channel a while ago. I actually received it before I realized it was even a thing. It's one of those things that occasionally you get when you kind of do the YouTube thing. People will send you stuff and it appears and you're kind of like, what the heck is that? This was one of those. I did a quick kind of overview for people like my Patreons, but I was keeping it under wraps. However, Gal has released his video on it, so you know what, I thought, okay, if we're talking about it, let me add my 2 pence. Now this, as you probably spotted, is a VTOL craft. It has tilting rotors at the front and a single rotor at the back, and its wings come off and it comes in a little box, so it makes it easy for transport, made of foam and injection molded plastic parts. Now, for those of you that are into VTOL, this is going to look pretty familiar because you know what? This is a very close cousin of one of the projects that's out there, something called the Mini Hawk VTOL. Now, the Mini Hawk VTOL project, from what I've heard, has not been contacted by Jumper when they've made this foam version of that 3D printed design, which is really disappointing because it looks like they've taken a lot of the DNA from that Mini Hawk 3D printed design and turned it into a foam model. And I was waiting for a couple of things before I made my videos. So let me talk a little bit about that. First and foremost was that at the time of me making this video, Jumper haven't made a manual for this. And I really want to see a manual because I could quite easily plug it into Mission Planner, figure it all out, figure out the ways that the motor's turning and how to install the props and what modes were set up. It comes with a little radio in the box. I could have figured it all out, but you know what? That's kind of not my job. That's Jumper's job to create a manual that makes it easy, because this is set up with a radio in the box. It's got an Elrs Receiver in here. It's got a flight controller, the PDB's ready to rock and roll. And the price is very, very attractive too. So this could be one of the first affordable VTOLs on the market. So while I show you how this arrives, let me go through the specs. Again, this is the Jumper XIAKE, is that how you say that? 800. It's a Y3 vertical takeoff wing. It's not particularly big, it's only 800 millimeters. So I think once you have it out of the box, I'm not sure it's worthwhile taking it apart to put it back in the box because it isn't that physically big that you couldn't just stick it in the boot of the car or carry it to the field. Propellers on this are 6238s and it's using 3 2205.5 motors, 30 amp speed controllers on this, and the flight controller that's included in here is PIX based. So it's going to be your standard kind of quad plane setup in here that we've been playing with on the channel already. Receiver that's included in the box is an ELRS 3.0 receiver, and there has been some thought about how you can add your own FPV equipment to the one I have here. There are cables in the box that are there for not only analog bits and pieces, but a cable that will clip in the back of a full-size DJI Air Unit 2. It is set up for things like GPS one-click return, and all of the servos on here appear to be quite nice with metal teeth. Battery that's recommended for this is a 4S 1500 to 2200 mAh 30C pack. Some of those Endurance Gens Ace packs that I really love, the 2200s, will just fit in the battery compartment if I hold my breath. It reckons Endurance is going to take about 30 minutes, and the takeoff weight is going to be anything from 650 to 1,000 grams. So not particularly heavy model, which is perfect for a nice VTOL and a small compact wing like this. Assembly is pretty easy with the parts snapping together. There are these rods that are sunk into the foam wings and they go into the main body, and there are 3D printed catches that make a nice satisfying snick sound when they go home. To remove it, then what you need to do is press those catches and they're spring loaded, and then that releases the 2 pieces and you can pull them out. Installing the wings also installs the removable vertical stabilizers at the back, so you have that to hopefully is going to help with the tail wag. However, I had to modify mine here and do a couple of things to get it together. First and foremost, the big issue that I had, and the reason why I emailed Jumper to ask them if they had a manual, was that I couldn't figure out how to put it together because it physically wouldn't go together until I cut a recess into the root of the wings for the servo cables. Somebody has put an awful lot of time and effort to take that Mini Hawk 3D printed design and turn it into foam. And the creation of a mould to create a model like this is not a small amount of money. But they missed one essential part. You don't have anywhere for those cables to go. So I use a very sharp X-Acto and cut these recesses into the base of the wing, and that allows those wings to click home. A very odd oversight. Maybe that will be fixed in the later production versions. The other thing that was missing on mine was the battery hatch latch at the back of the battery cover wasn't installed, so my battery hatch wouldn't click in place. So I very quickly designed a 3D printable one and popped that into the model with some Yoo-Hoo pour glue, and it's been absolutely fine. If you need that little design, let me know and I'll pop you a link to the STL file so you can print one if you've got one of these and it didn't come with that piece installed too. So is this a copy of the Mini Hawk? Well, it sure looks the same. Even the design of the rear piece and the way that goes together to hold the motor, it looks the same. Side by side from a speeding train, you wouldn't be able to tell that they were any different. However, someone has put in a lot of work to get this from that 3D printable model into the foam design. There are lots of injection molded parts. This isn't full of 3D printed bits. The engine nacelles, the clasps to hold the wing on are all injection molded. Again, not inexpensive things to set up on a production line. Catches for the wings do make them removable as well, and they've also thought about how the vertical stabilizers are caught by the wings to hold them into place securely when everything snaps together. I do hope that Jumper reach out to the Mini Hawk project. So my initial thoughts on this are that I like the idea. This is a design that is tried and tested thanks to the Mini Hawk team. I like the price point. If it comes out and stays at the price point that it's listed on places like AliExpress, this is going to be the VTOL for every man. And I like the fact that it comes with all the electronics installed, the fact the flight controller's in here, all the cabling's done, the power distribution unit, the wires are all set. It's just a case of, once we have the manual, plugging it all together and going through the pre-flight stuff, and away we go. I do like the fact that it has space for FPV kit in the nose, and there's a mount for an air unit with a little piece that sits over the top of the flight controller that covers the USB port. That can be removed to put something like the DJI stuff on, and when that cover's removed, you also have access to the USB port, which is great for those who want to tinker with things like Mission Planner. I like the fact that it ships with an Elrs Receiver, although that should be easy to swap over if you want to upgrade it. I will probably upgrade that one in mine to use one of the new Beta FPV D-Series diversity receivers and put the antennas in different spots on the model to give me the best chance of maintaining a connection when I fly it. And I like the fact that it comes with a cable for the DJI HD unit too. They've really thought about how it all goes together and how you can add that FPV stuff in, which, let's face it, most of us are going to do. But I am disappointed that the Mini Hawk project wasn't contacted. That would have been the professional way to handle things, and I still hope that Jumper do and take care of those guys. I had to make a few alterations to mine, as I've covered in here, to put it together, so it's not as finished as I would have liked. And there's also not a lot of airflow for the FPV kit. If I do put a DJI piece in the front or a walk snail unit, that's going to run hot, so I'm going to have to cut some air recesses for some airflow that could have been moulded in already from the factory. And all the motors are the same direction, but one prop is different, which would make sense because the two props at the front are probably going to be counter-rotating. However, all of the motors are turning in the same direction from what I can see. They haven't used a clockwise and counterclockwise motor. Not a real disaster, because you know what, with these nylock nuts, once you've nipped them up, they're pretty good at not coming undone, but it's just good practice. If you're going to have a motor running backwards because you have a backwards prop, then you know what, That makes sense because the motor will always stop the prop nut from spinning off. And the battery compartment is tight. There is a lot of room in here. With my favourite endurance batteries that I would like to use for this, there is a lot of room at all. So when Jumper finish a manual, which I hope they do, because somebody's putting in a lot of time and effort to create this model based on that Mini Hawk project, I will then go through a setup and flight tutorial and do all of that stuff. So stay tuned. You will see this again when that manual surfaces, and I'll talk about what it's like to fly. I'll put links down below to the Mini Hawk project, so if you don't want to buy one of these and you want to support those guys and 3D print your own version of this, then that's an option too. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organized into easy to follow playlists that if you're trying to learn a topic will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.